The most important thing in fantasy football, and I honestly don't even think it's that close, is being willing to go back and revisit your previous evaluations that were wrong. Go back to when I said, oh my God, Thomas, please throw up this tweet. I said, in the past 20 years, there have been a total of 2 rookie tight ends to go for over 700 yards. Kyle Pitts will have to be one of the best rookie tight ends of all time just to justify his ADP. How is this a good bet? And then Kyle Pitts goes from being the best tight end prospect of all time to being the best rookie tight end of all time. And we're having to sit here going, okay, well, I got egg on my face. Let's kind of dive into Pitts now and figure out if we should be buying high or staying away. But of course, before we dive into some of my very bad calls from last year and updating them, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. And if you want access to some of the worst dynasty rankings you will ever find, if you want access to some of the worst rookie rankings you'll ever find, if you want to be a part of the flock, make sure you go sign up for Locals. You can find the link in the description of this video. Over there on Locals, we have a ton of stuff going on, not only rankings, extra live streams, constant post going up there with dynasty trades, and there's a ton of free stuff over there as well, so you can just find that in the description. There'll be some stuff behind the paywall, some stuff that's completely free, but yeah, that should be it. Let's go through and let's dive into this. And Kyle Pitts, yes, let's bring him up here. And we already read the tweet, and y'all know, if you've been watching this channel for a very long time, I was looking at Kyle Pitts as a player that was going as the tight end 1 in some dynasty startup drafts last year, and I was mocking it. I was laughing at it, despite always admitting 100% of the time that Kyle Pitts is by far and away the best tight end prospect to ever walk this earth. I mean, you have Saquon Barkley at running back. You have Kyle Pitts at tight end. You have truly elite generational level prospects that we get to see once in a blue moon. Now, with Kyle Pitts, what made him such a good prospect, he went to the NFL Combine, and y'all know we wrote about this. We've done this research. The Combine doesn't really matter for wide receiver, doesn't really matter for quarterback, but running back and tight end, it does. He goes to the Combine, aka his pro day, because it was last year, and he has a 4.44 40-yard dash. As a tight end, he's 6'6", 245 pounds. So he is an elite size adjusted athlete. I mean, beyond measure. Like nobody's walking around like Kyle Pitts. Players in the NBA aren't looking like Kyle Pitts. And then we head over and look at the production profile that he had at Florida. Keep in mind, Kadarius Toney was there as well, and you have him averaging almost 100 receiving yards per game at 19 years old. As a true junior at Florida, an extremely young tight end, he averages over 96 receiving yards per game and has 1.5 touchdowns per game. He has 12 touchdowns through 8 games. I mean, this wasn't necessarily a bad passing offense, but still phenomenal production profile and size adjusted athleticism profile. You combine those two things together that are extreme outliers, and all of a sudden he's the highest tight end ever drafted. The Falcons go out there, they take him at the 4th pick overall. A lot of people are screaming that they should have taken Justin Fields, yada yada yada. They probably should have taken Kyle Pitts, because very rarely are you ever going to see a player of this caliber. Now, the reason I was saying you didn't want Kyle Pitts is we are looking at historical trends, and we are looking at what happens with rookie tight ends and their dynasty value after their rookie seasons. And very rarely, like legitimately, I can count on one hand the amount of times you've had a rookie tight end exponentially increasing their dynasty trade value after their rookie year, even if it was impressive as a rookie. Because what happens every offseason is someone goes, okay, yeah, I'm going to go out here. I'm going to grab David Njoku. I'm going to grab OJ Howard, but I'm not expecting any production for the first 3 years because they're a tight end. I'm going to make sure that I hold them for a very long time. And then the next offseason, after they don't really do much, and you have the running backs, the wide receivers popping off, then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, people just let go of those tight ends at a discount. I wasn't necessarily saying that we were going to be able to grab Kyle Pitts at a discount, but what I was saying, and this is going to be embarrassing, very embarrassing, is I was saying we were going to be able to draft Jamar Chase, and this is the embarrassing part, Travis Etienne, and expect more rookie season production and have a better chance at those two players increasing their dynasty trade value. Of course, Jamar Chase looks fine, but for us to say that about Travis Etienne at this point, that is laughable. Laughable, laughable, laughable. It didn't matter if Travis Etienne came out and was a Najee Harris level player, which probably wouldn't have happened. Kyle Pitts is still going to have more dynasty value. Now, let's move on to his rookie season. And let's look at how damn impressive it was and how wrong I was, because he was going in the 3rd or 4th round of redraft leagues. If you were over there on Underdog Fantasy, y'all know we were live streaming drafts every single day their offseason. We're still doing that this offseason, but you were seeing Kyle Pitts as a consistent 3rd round or 4th round draft pick. See the tweet that I had saying he would have to be one of the best rookie tight ends of all time to just meet this ADP and not be a bust. And hell, he was. He comes out over 1,000 receiving yards, 68 receptions, 110 targets. Now, what held Kyle Pitts back is something that, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think is going to be a problem at all going forward. So my take of never drafting Kyle Pitts didn't burn us because he only had 1 touchdown. He only had 1 touchdown, which of course matters so much if we're talking about just a fantasy football production on a per game basis, whatever you want to see. Less than 1% of his targets turned to touchdowns. But what is the most volatile statistic in all of fantasy football? And it's not remotely close either. It's going to be that touchdown rate. It's going to be your touchdowns per season. What we need to be chasing is we need to be chasing the volume of a player. And if Kyle Pitts was like Irv Smith Jr., if he was an undersized tight end, then maybe we could say, okay, there's possibly something here. Should we be expecting Kyle Pitts to have a lower touchdown rate than league average going forward? The answer to that is no. We should expect Kyle Pitts to have a much higher touchdown rate than a league average going forward. He averaged 1.5 touchdowns per game at Florida, and he's 6'6" and has the largest or top 5 largest wingspan of any player in the NFL. This is someone that will dominate in the red zone. It was a fluke year why he didn't score touchdowns. He also has the elite speed where you could see Kyle Pitts be one of the very rare tight ends that actually is able to take it the distance and possibly rack up some 40, 50-yard touchdowns and not necessarily just be used in the red zone. So we got very lucky. Yes, people drafting him in the 3rd round, 4th round of redraft formats last year didn't really have that pay off. And I want to say kind of the people in the Dynasty community that were drafting him in the 2nd round. Yeah, he's a late 1st, early 2nd round pick now in those 12-team Superflex leagues. But still, at the same time, it's not necessarily like there was that massive boom. But I want to be on the record. I want to say I was laughably wrong for Kyle Pitts to go over 1,000 receiving yards. The only tight end in NFL history who's had more as a rookie was Mike Ditka in 1961. The NFL was not the NFL in 1961. I know I'm young to be saying this. I know everybody hates it. But if you just look at the athletes now, like if Kyle Pitts went and played in the NFL in 1961, he probably would have had 3,000 receiving yards. Okay, so we could just throw those seasons out the window. If we go through and if we look at the top 25 rookie tight end seasons of all time, this comes from StatMuse, and we just trim it down to tight ends that had that finish since 2010. So a little over the past decade. You have Kyle Pitts, Jeremy Shockey, Evan Ingram, Timothy Wright, and then you have some big time names. You have Aaron Hernandez, Noah Fant, Tony, I can't even say the name, Mark Andrews, and Rob Gronkowski. And what's funny is if you look at Gronk with his 548 receiving yards, that's less than half of Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts doesn't just go on this list. Kyle Pitts dominates the other tight ends on this list. Now, I know what everybody's going to be saying, and I've already had this like on those underdog streams on our redraft channel. I've had people coming out and saying, okay, well, Mason, you weren't drafting Kyle Pitts last year. How are you going to be paying a higher price for Kyle Pitts this upcoming season with worse quarterback play? And that's a fine question because you're looking at the quarterback play going for Matt Ryan. I do think a lot of people are overrating Matt Ryan actually at this moment in Indianapolis, but that's besides the point. You are going from Matt Ryan to Marcus Mariota. Nobody can sit here and argue that that is a quarterback upgrade. I don't even think Desmond Ridder plays this year. I think Desmond Ridder has almost no shot to be anything in the long term in the NFL. So I'm not saying he's going to have quarterback play that we can get excited about by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not even saying they could go trade for Baker. They could trade for Jimmy G. I think they're locked into what they currently have. It's going to be ugly for Kyle Pitts. So the situation is significantly worse in that way. But what a lot of people are not focusing in on And while they do add Drake London, my wide receiver 1 in this draft class, love me the talent profile of Drake London, is there are a lot of targets leaving this offense. I know a lot of people are saying he has more target competition this upcoming season than he had last year with worse quarterback play. The worst quarterback play is true, but if we look at the target competition leaving, you have Hayden Hurst leaving, you have Russell Gage gone, you have Mike Davis gone, you have Calvin Ridley gone as well. Now, Hayden Hurst, 31 targets, Russell Gage, 94, Mike Davis, 58, Calvin Ridley, 52. That opens up 221 targets this upcoming season. So that gives room for this offense to throw the ball less, to give Drake London 110 targets, and still have Kyle Pitts with a much larger role in this offense than what he saw last year, which we should come to expect for tight ends that historically don't break out until year 3 of their NFL career. But when you are the best rookie tight end of all time, I think we can expect him to take that jump in year 2 instead of year 3 or year 4. And I know some people are going to say, okay, well, Mason, you bum, you listed Mike Davis as one of those players. Why are you thinking Mike Davis and his targets are going to go over to Kyle Pitts? Cordell Patterson had almost 70 targets last season. I don't think Cordell Patterson, who had 548 receiving yards, can all of a sudden see more usage in the receiving game at 32 years old. I would say Cordell Patterson probably has less than 550 receiving yards as well. So that is a lot of opportunity up for grabs in this offense. And speaking of the quarterback downgrade, while I agree that it's something we need to worry about, let's not be mistaken. And I don't see why people are thinking this all of a sudden. Matt Ryan is not the quarterback he was 10 years ago. He's not the quarterback he was 5 years ago. This is someone that's coming off a season where the efficiencies dropped down over the past 2 years, and he has the 16th most passing yards in the NFL and 233 passing yards per game. That is exactly average quarterback play. So you're going from an average amount of passing volume in this offense to below average with Marcus Mariota. You should get a significant amount of development from your tight end going into year 2. There's more opportunity in this offense despite them adding in Drake London. That is why I'm fine saying, you know what? If we just get that touchdown rate, it's not going to be 10% right away for Kyle Pitts, but let's say Kyle Pitts gets a bump. We'll do this across the board. We're going to give Kyle Pitts a bump of 15% of his targets. Is that fair to say? Let's go through and give Kyle Pitts a bump in 15% of his targets. That gives him 126 targets this upcoming season. If you maintain his same yards per target, we are going to move his total receiving yards this upcoming season up to almost 1,200, a little over 1,100 receiving yards. And no, he wasn't an elite fantasy option with that last year, but that's because he had a touchdown rate less than 1%. That's never going to happen for Kyle Pitts. We're not going to say he has a touchdown on 10% of his targets this upcoming season, but if that gets bumped up to 7%, which is completely possible, and he does get 15% more targets per game this upcoming season, that gives Kyle Pitts about 9 touchdowns this year. And if you maintain that volume and you get that positive touchdown bump, which a 7% touchdown rate is easily in the range of outcomes, it's probably likely for Kyle Pitts. He comes away with 9 touchdowns. Kyle Pitts is an elite tight end, a top 3 tight end option this season, and the man's 21 years old. So we were wrong on Kyle Pitts last season. Now that we saw one of the best rookie tight end seasons of all time, I'm willing to go buy high. Yes, I'm sorry, we weren't drafting him as the tight end 1, the tight end 2 last year in startups, but I am more than willing to go and pay that tight end 1 price now. More than willing. And now our next player that we got wrong, we've gotten Deontay Johnson wrong each of the past 2 seasons. We're actually drafting him a lot his rookie year just because the draft capital and the Dynasty community's expectations didn't line up, but very similar to Terry McLaurin is someone that I drafted a lot as a rookie, and then we sold him way too low after his rookie season thinking we were selling him high. But here with Deontay Johnson, he goes through, continues to improve. In 2019, this is the year where you have the injured Ben Roethlisberger. He averages 5.75 targets per game. That's good for an 18% team target share. This is all on a per game basis. Yes, we've done all this math. Then he bumps up to a 22% team target share in 2020. This is how I was just horribly wrong. And I try my best. I think I'm actually very good at it because I'm not a fan of any NFL team. I try my best to leave any biases that I have at the door when I make these videos, when I go through and construct my teams. But I think I made a massive mistake because I was a big fan of Juju Smith-Schuster earlier on in his NFL career, and I wanted Juju Smith-Schuster to be the wide receiver one here. I ignored this dominance you had from Deontay Johnson with his target share, and this upcoming season in 2021, Deontay Johnson is one of the very few wide receivers in the entire NFL to average over 10 targets a game. Deontay Johnson comes out and dominates with his volume. He's the wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis. Absurd. Legitimately absurd. Now, of course, there are a couple things changing here with Deontay Johnson. Very similar to what we just discussed with Kyle Pitts. You have the quarterback downgrade, or on paper, you have the quarterback downgrade. This is something I really want to talk about. Very similar to Matt Ryan. I am not viewing Big Ben in 2021 as Ben Roethlisberger from 10 years ago. If you look at the adjusted yards per pass attempt for Ben Roethlisberger in 2021, when he was 39 years old, it was 6.2. Quarterbacks that had a higher adjusted yards per pass attempt this past season: Daniel Jones, Davis Mills, Taylor Heineke, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, Matt Ryan. Now, this isn't really new. We've seen this trend happening. I mean, you go back to 2020, he had an adjusted yards per pass attempt of 6.6. That's worse than Mitchell Trubisky that year. That's worse than Gardner Minshew that season. That's worse than Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Fitzmagic that year. And if we go through, and I know Ben Roethlisberger, undoubtedly a Hall of Fame quarterback. We can all get on board saying Big Ben is that Hall of Fame QB option. But if we go through and plot his adjusted yards per pass attempt since his age 32 season, it has been a straight decline. Age 32. Thomas, please throw this up here. 8.5 adjusted yards per pass attempt. Then 7.8. We know these quarterbacks, they can maintain quarterback play for quite a while. They can go until they're 36. You have a very consistent mark of 7.5 adjusted yards per pass attempt for 3 straight seasons for Ben Roethlisberger. Then you have the injury, his age 37 season. Since then, he has been one of the NFL's worst quarterbacks. 6.6 his age 38 season, 6.2 this past year. So yes, looking at Kenny Pickett, looking at Mitchell Trubisky, I will be on record saying if I was a betting man, I would bet that Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett are both bad quarterbacks at the NFL level. I think it's more likely than not that they're both bad. But you've already had Deontay Johnson finishing as a mid-wide receiver 1 with some of the worst quarterback play. I know it's a tough choice of words, but some of the worst quarterback play in the NFL. And he's been doing it with volume, not efficiency, which is what we like to see. Now, I know you're also adding George Pickens into this offense, and very similar to how we're viewing Kyle Pitts and what you're getting added in with Drake London. While a lot of people are focusing in on the addition of George Pickens, I'll say George Pickens is probably a talented wide receiver. We were hating on Pickens at the beginning of the offseason when people were trying to put him over Chris Olave because they were ridiculous. But George Pickens, where he went in the NFL draft, I think he's a fine value. Now, if we're looking at adding George Pickens, it's not going to make up for all the players that this team is losing. Now, I know a lot of these guys aren't big name options, but they were drawing targets consistently over the past few seasons in Pittsburgh. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously going over to Kansas City. You have James Washington as well. James Washington was soaking up so many snaps at the wide receiver position. You have Ray McLeod, and yes, you're probably going to get a bump up from some players, say like a Pat Freiermuth this upcoming year, but Eric Ebron is leaving as well. So you can see Pat Freiermuth taking that volume from Eric Ebron instead of the targets that were left over from these other wide receivers. So while you do have George Pickens coming in, while George Pickens is probably better than Juju Smith-Schuster, he's probably better than James Washington. With all those wide receivers leaving, it's not like he is not going to be able to find just easy volume in this offense without eating into Deontay Johnson. I think the quarterback downgrade that Deontay Johnson is seeing is a little bit overstated. Like if we go over to keep trade cut right now, you have Deontay Johnson currently being drafted as the wide receiver 16. A mid-wide receiver 2, despite being a mid-wide receiver 1 last year, and he is 25 years old. He's going behind Michael Pittman. Let's pull this up. This is hilarious. I don't get it. I know a lot of people like seeing, oh, the big, tall wide receiver. Michael Pittman is 1 year younger than Deontay Johnson. 1 year younger. And if you look at what we have seen between Deontay Johnson and Michael Pittman so far in their NFL careers, Michael Pittman does not come close to Deontay. Michael Pittman, this past season, averaged 7.5 targets per game for the Indianapolis Colts. The year 2 Deontay Johnson was at 9.5. Then we already saw the elite jump up to 10.5. It's not like Matt Ryan's going to be a dramatically better option over the next 3 to 4 years than you're going to have in Pittsburgh. With the Indianapolis Colts, they're not missing out on too many pass catching options from last year. I know a lot of people want to say, oh, there's nobody in Indianapolis. Michael Pittman has no target. He had no target competition last year, and he was the wide receiver 28 on a points per game basis. Drafting Michael Pittman right now over Deontay Johnson in Dynasty, it's 100% just you being overly confident with your projections for a player to continue to improve rather than taking the young cornerstone target hog that we've already seen. We've already seen him produce. He's going to be 26 this upcoming season. He's 25 right now. There's no reason to be fading Deontay Johnson at the moment. So yes, we were wrong with Deontay Johnson. We were wrong with Kyle Pitts last year. First one to admit it, but I'm going through and I'm buying now. I can't say anything else. I wish I could come out here and say, oh yeah, Kyle Pitts, he got lucky last year. Oh yeah, Deontay Johnson, I don't have him in any of my dynasty leagues, but they added George Pickens. He's done. No, you can't say that. They're two good values in dynasty startups right now. I'm fine adding them on. And please, if you enjoyed this video, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. That's all I got for you. If you want to be a part of the flock, head over to our locals community. You can find the link in the description or in the comment section. I think that's all I got for you, and I hope you have a great day.